And I've learned that the DTCC is a self-regulating organization that holds 97% of all stocks and that is able to essentially fudge the books. Why don't you tell our audience, in your wise and experienced perspective, just how the president should look at the DTCC as maybe the fox in his hen house?
Most certainly. The Depository Trust Corporation is owned by the very perpetrators themselves. All right. Look at the board members. Those are the board members are individuals who are partners in those perpetrators themselves. It is a self-regulatory organization. If you look at the website, just to put this into perspective for the president or any of your listeners or viewers, you're going to see that about $750 trillion a year is cleared through the Depository Trust Corporation. Now, something very interesting happened in 1998, 1999. That event was that the Depository Trust Corporation bought the National Securities Clearing Corporation, referred to as the NSCC. The NSCC does nothing but loan stock. The only reason you loan stock is to short sellers. So this crime really was not a major event on the radar screen, nor was it practiced by many like it is today, pre-1998. I believe that's because the NSCC, owned by the DTC, is the facilitator in a very large way of this crime. Secondly, I believe that the passage of the Private Securities Litigation Reform Act in 1998, which excluded any RICO violations being attached to this securities fraud, so it made it where you could not bring in a racketeering claim, which is treble damages, and ultimately can be crossed over to a criminal racketeering claim for securities fraud. Is that coincidence? Absolutely not. This was designed by the prime brokers themselves, in my opinion, such that all this activity started really 1999, 2000, et cetera, and that's verified by a recent book by Suzanne Trimbath, who was an executive officer at the DTC, when they really began dealing with what they call overvoting. Well, overvoting at the DTC is nothing more than the existence of phantom counterfeit shares. That is, more shares have been issued than exist, and that results in overvoting. And so ultimately, Suzanne Trimbath's book and her testimony, and I've used her as a consultant before from the beginning, has corroborated that, in fact, that started around that time period. So what needs to be done is the Depository Trust Corporation needs to be audited. It needs to be audited by outside auditors controlled by the president or the White House, or trustworthy portions of the government. They need to look at those books and look at the books of the National Securities Clearing Corporation and the books of each prime brokers. What they're going to see, and we know this because we've already done some analysis ourselves, is there are hundreds of millions and billions of shares that are on the books of the brokers that hardworking Americans have paid for those shares, Robert, but in fact, all they own is nothing. They have an IOU, because at the end of the day, there's only so many shares, regardless of what Wall Street has printed out electronically. If those aren't backed up with real shares, and in many instances they're not, then the person who paid their hard-working money for that share, whether it's in their pension account or a personal investment, has nothing. They have an IOU, which if there was a run on the bank, a lot of people wouldn't get their shares.
The DTC, which is the sort of centralized clearing agency, why would it want to do business with a intermediary in Tennessee that does business with Tennessee customers? Because now the whole structure of the system doesn't work right to protect DTC.